What a crazy first season in the Faroe Islands in this builder nation. So we took over A, B, as well as the Faroe national team, and it's just been an absolute crazy journey. So before the season started, the board wanted us to avoid relegation, and the cup was just not important to them. So just avoid relegation, not important in the cup. We had quite a small team. I would like to add a bit to it. We had a couple of big players. We had, for example, our centre-back here, Eric McHugh, an American international who had a second nationality of Swedish, so he didn't count as a foreign player. Was an absolute insane talent. Definitely somebody who I wanted to build our hopes on. We also had Labus Santiago, who we looked at in the last episode, who definitely as a foreign player was one of our best players going into this season, as well as all of our hopes for goals this season were on Danish youngster Thomas Junge. Now, if we look at signings we made before the season started, Carlos Edwards, former Premier League player Carlos Edwards, joins us from non-league in England. Now, he is obviously going to count as a foreign player, but he added some good depth to the squad. Isaac Simonson coming in as a left-back stroke left-winger will be our first choice left-back this season. Before we added a Spanish winger to add our fourth foreign player slot, and he's a talented player. Physically not the best, but in terms of what we needed to add a bit of depth to the squad, and in terms of adding quality to the squad, Manuel Gatto came in as our fourth foreign player for the season. Now, at the halfway point of the season, we are looking very, very solid. You can see here in third place. Now, we were expected to avoid relegation, so the fact we are kicking ass, I would say, in third place is definitely something to take positives from. Now, tactically in the first half of the season, we were playing this 4-3-3 with three in central midfield, with Scala as the central midfield on attack, and he is a very, very solid player, somebody who I think we can build around for a good few seasons going forward. Now, a tactical change we did add was the swap wingers, which I did make a video on, and you can see here we have swap wingers left and right side, and it's been very useful. Labus, even though he is just a right winger, him swapping over on the left means he's cutting in, picking up goals and assists for us this season. Now, I would say for the £375 a week, he's only got 7 assists in 14 games. I would have liked to have seen more from him so far. So youth intake came, and we were predicted to get quite a poor intake, and I was fairly pleased. Now, this guy we're not going to actually get. Financially, we really do need to fix the club, which we will look at in a second, but we ended up not signing him. We've only brought in 2 people. We brought in the left back, who I actually think should have been probably labelled as our best intake. He's a very, very talented player, 15 years old. He looks fairly solid as a left back. And we also signed this central defender who, again, looks very solid. Maybe as a no-nonsense centre-back, he has some good potential. But as the season comes to an end, it also came to an end for the national team and our first full season as the Faroe Islands manager. And yeah, it wasn't the best season, I would say. We started with a 1-1 draw to Switzerland, which I started to believe anything was possible at that point, before getting absolutely smashed by Erling Haaland and Norway, with Haaland getting 4 goals in that game. Now, what I would say is, entering the Nations League Group C, where we ended up getting relegated, which I'd rather not talk about, we didn't look as bad as the results say. If you look here, we only lost by 1 goal to Lithuania. We then beat Luxembourg at home 3-0, absolute domination, before losing by only 1 goal again to Turkey, only 1 goal to Lithuania, and only 1 goal to Turkey, before going down 3-0, which secured relegation to Luxembourg, and that was due to an early red card, which ended up costing us away from home. And as I say, we've ended up getting relegated there, scoring 9, conceding 13. So we actually had a better record than Luxembourg, but them getting that victory on the final day ended up resulting in us getting relegated. So we've actually been relegated to League D going into the next Nations League campaign. So unfortunately, even though it was labelled as not important, we've ended up getting relegated, which was very disappointing. We have looked at using this tactic going into the next campaign. We just need to keep working hard, I think, with the national team and seeing what we can produce over the first few seasons. We have gave a couple of youngsters some game time. Jacob Wilhelmsen, who's actually joining our club, isn't a bad left back, only 18 years old. I think he has a bit of potential, so we've been giving him a bit of football. Our top goal scorer is obviously on the older side, 32 years old, but he now has 15 goals, and he's become the all-time top goal scorer for the Faroe Islands during our time in charge. But I would say most of the action this season then has been with the club side, and we ended up finishing in third place, qualifying for the Europa Conference League for our second season. So going into the second season, we will be playing European football, which I'm absolutely delighted by. Now, we did end up picking up another couple of signings at the end of the season. Klim Pringhodko, nailed that. Ukrainian defensive midfielder, ended up playing 11 games for us. We signed him about halfway through the season, and I'm very, very pleased with him. Now, he is currently unhappy because we didn't improve the training facilities. Not my fault. And the other signing we picked up after getting released by FH in Iceland, he played the last 2 games, conceding 4 goals, was the Faroe Islands goalkeeper. 75 appearances so far for the Faroe Islands. That might be it, because he's not actually first choice for the Faroe Islands at the minute, which is hard to explain to him, as seen as I'm his manager at the Faroe Islands as well. But Gunnar Nielsen has ended up joining us, and he's not a bad player. And we did end up losing one player during the season, but we did end up losing him for, I think it was about 14k. Yeah, 14k. We sold Santiago Labus back to Argentina. Now, he is valued between 170 and 5.8 million, which isn't bad, really. I mean, I guess the negative we'll look at is we don't have a sell-on clause. I wish we did have a 10%, for example, because we could have made an absolute fortune from that sale. No! And that would have been needed, because we're 185k in the red at the minute. And we have just been given 50k for prize money for finishing third. But we really do need European football, because we've financially struggled massively this season. Now, what I would say is a lot of that is down to the fact that we have a lot of wage going out to our staff, which we don't actually need. We have a technical director we're paying £500 a week to. He is going at the end of the season. Director of football, £425 a week, going at the end of the season. Loan manager, £400 a week, going at the end of the season. Head of youth development, £400 a week. You get the idea, going at the end of the season. Assistant manager, going at the end of the season. We have a player coach who we are actually keeping. Head physio, whose contract runs out next season, we're going to keep. We have head coach for the second team, which I'm going to try to hold on to. We also have here sports scientist, who I'm going to actually let go. We have a scout, who I'm going to let go at the minute because we don't need him. And a fitness coach as well, who we're going to let go. So that's going to end up saving us about 3,000 to 4,000 a week, which is going to be about 100,000 a year. It's going to be 3,000 to 4,000 a week. You put that over the month, which is going to be about 11,000 a month, which is over 100,000 in a year. So hopefully them kind of changes are going to financially stabilise the club, and we will look at restructuring the staff with hopefully non-contracts, if not staff who do 2 jobs. Assistant manager, who is also my head of youth, will be absolutely ideal, but we'll see what we can do. In terms of the club contract-wise, Carlos Edwards and Gato, who we looked at as new signings, will be leaving us at the end of the season, as well as a couple other players who are maybe not in and around the squad at the minute. We do also have a lot of players in our B team who are going to be leaving us at the end of the season, who again are on quite high wages. So you can see here, contracts running out. We have all these players here whose contracts run out, all 50, 100, go £170 here, but he is also the head coach, £75 a week here, etc. It's all going to save us money on our weekly expenditure. Now, looking at our B team, we actually won the 3rd tier. So our B team is going up into the 2nd tier for next season. Now, I'm not sure how they are going to do, because over the 2nd and 3rd season, I have a worry, unless we have a good European run, that we're going to be spending a lot of time fixing ourselves financially before we can let our B team flourish. But looking to see how other teams did, so you can see KI won the league last year. So if we go into the schedule and see how they did in European football this year, they actually ended up going out, if we drag this across so we can actually see, they ended up going out in the European Conference League Champions Path 2nd round to a Albanian side. So that lets you know the level at the minute. They went out in the first qualifying round of the Champions League to a Luxembourg side, and then when they've gone into the Europa League, the Europa Conference League, they've ended up going out at the first round as well. So there's a lot to fix here. As a nation, we're not doing the best. We're not doing the best. So they've ended up going out really early. I'm not too sure who else played in Europe. Yeah, so it was Goethe also played. They went out to Icelandic side as well on the first qualifying round. So I'm dreaming we can do better next year, just because financially we actually need to do better next year. But when you look at how the other teams have done in Europe, it doesn't fill me with much hope that we can just turn up and get a couple of rounds in just to help ourselves financially. Now, we did end up getting to the semi-finals of the Cup before losing to 07 Vester, who actually ended up winning the Cup. If we go under there, you can see they end up being KI in the Cup in extra time. So we did well to get to the semi-finals, losing on penalties, which was a bit upsetting. But I've got to be proud that in Season 1, we ended up finishing 3rd, getting European football, and getting to the semi-finals. I mean, a lot of our success was down to a few players. Thomas Junge, our young Danish striker we had to rely on a lot, ended up scoring 20 goals in 24 games, which is just insane for him. We ended up giving our youth intake player a few games near the end of the season, a left back, so he's actually played 3 games for us now already after just turning 16. And Isaac Simonson, the left back who we signed this season, ended up moving onto the left wing and scoring 3 goals after moving up to the left wing for them 3 games. So in 3 games as a left winger, he scored 3 goals. Now, another player to mention is Scala, who ended up getting 7 caps for Faroe Islands this season. The national team manager must like him. As well as scoring 12 league goals for us in 24 games, he has just stepped up as an academy player. He has now ended up becoming the first choice player in the squad, and this season for us has just cemented that place, really. So really, really pleased with him. Only 22, hopefully can develop into a first team regular going forward. Defensively, we've been very, very, very solid. If we move McHugh back in, because he was suspended for the final game of the season, Ture, who is a Norwegian player, has been fantastic for us this season. 6'5", being an absolute mountain alongside McHugh. Them two in central defence. Sapenza has kind of cemented himself as our right back this season ahead of Carlos Edwards, because I've ended up bringing him on to fix mistakes that Edwards ended up doing early on in the season. So even though there's nothing amazing there, he's on a high wage because he's also a coach for our B team. He's also very knowledgeable, and we've ended up getting offered players because of his knowledge of the likes of Finland. So he's ended up becoming quite a decent player for our squad this year, even if his ratings don't say that. So I think going forward, there's a lot to build on. There's a lot to be confident about as we look to improve going into Season 2. There's going to be a lot more in-depth going forward as we look at building the whole club. But at the minute, it's more just about pushing on early on. You saw the intake was very poor, so there was nothing to look at there. But I have a lot of faith, but I think going in next season, there's a lot more going out than coming in, and that's a slight worry, because we need to let 90% of our staff go. We need to let a lot of our backup players who are earning money, which we can't afford to give them, go. We need to negotiate a few contracts where we're still paying people appearance fees and unused sub fees. which I really don't want to keep doing. So there's a lot of work to do, but hopefully you are going to enjoy it. So thank you for watching. Join me in the next episode of this series where we will review Season 2. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.